Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio inside Mac 6 Conscious Workspace in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. I'm your host and Phoenix Business Radio studio partner, Karen Nowicki, and I am very excited about my guest in the studio with me today. We have indipop founder Melissa Blatt. Welcome, Melissa.
Good morning.
We have LT to thank for this opportunity for us to connect.
Shout out to LT.
Shout out to our friend LT, who's been on with us a couple of times. And when I connect with someone new and I think they'd make for a great guest, I often say to folks, hey, who do you want to bring along with you that may want an opportunity to, share a little bit about their business, celebrate the journey that they're on and how they're helping people. And Melissa, you recommended Alec Laughlin.
That's correct. And he's also a member of indipop. So
how perfect is that? Love it. So welcome to the studio, Alec, founder of PHILANDRY.
PHILANDRY, yes.
PHILANDRY.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks. Good morning.
And thank you for making the drive up from Tucson.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, it was uneventful until I got to the exit here coming off and my truck died. So I popped the hood and we're okay. We got here. So.
Good. Well, I didn't hear that in the green room ahead of time. So that's even better that you landed here.
And just the perils of driving a 30-year-old vehicle. If you like vintage vehicles, that's the way it goes.
And mine's not vintage, but I was having some battery issues. I just went to New York, as I shared with both of you before we came on live. And I was worried about leaving it at the, economy parking. So walking up to the car after 4 days of sitting there, I'm like, come on, baby. And she started. I was good. It's never fun to have those troubles. Well, listen, we are excited to learn about each of your businesses and how you're serving the community and just really why you've landed where you've landed. So we have a lot of time for all of those. If each of you could just begin by, and Melissa, if it's okay, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then how you landed to find your way to indipop.
Sure. Well, how far do you want to go back?
Whatever feels comfortable. We've got plenty of time. What makes sense?
Well, it's interesting because I sometimes question, wow, how did I get here? And I have a film degree from NYU, so kind of interesting path. You might think that I'd be in entertainment. I'm not new to freelancing world because I started out like that in my 20s, and I really didn't have to worry about healthcare at that time because I was under 26, and healthcare back, 20 years ago was a little bit different. So fast forward, I got really interested in business development and marketing and kind of segued into corporate America and worked for some really great companies. And then I started to have that itch of, I don't want to be tied to one company. There's a lot of things that I do want to do on my own. And when I left to go out on my own as an independent contractor, I had sticker shock for what my Cobra was. And then discovering, wow, on your own, healthcare over the age of 40 is ridiculously expensive. And that's when I started to do this real deep dive into the industry. And I said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something that makes sense because I'm one of 57 million freelancers, solopreneurs, and independent contractors out there that are growing every year. They make up this kind of gig economy. I discovered there's something called health shares. And it's not mainstream, but it's a completely different approach to managing your medical needs. That is something that I got very interested in and said, I want to bring this to this population. And I call it the independent population. Therefore, we have indipop.
I was going to ask, and I don't think in our introductory conversation via Zoom that I had thought to ask that. I love that name.
So it's all the independents that basically are not employed by a company. They're on their own. And they're the population that kind of gets lost, and they're paying the most for their services. And also no one's really helping navigate and steer them in a good direction.
It's horrifying, actually. So I shared with you offline that my husband and I both are independent business owners, and we have one kiddo who's still at home. And to navigate the healthcare and what's available is so daunting and overwhelming. And the sticker shock, the pricing is absurd. And it almost made us want to go back and one of us get a job where, obviously benefits were part of it. But why make that decision based on a need like that, right? I mean, when you're both starting off new businesses, you don't have a lot of extra discretionary income, and yet you need to make sure that you're protected.
I call them the what ifs.
Right.
which happen, the slip and falls, the emergency appendectomy, they come out of the blue. And
hyperbolist here, I always say, if I get hit by a bus,
Right.
But yeah, it's the same.
For sure.
That was the first conversation I had with Alec. And he's healthy. He's, he works out. I know the studio audience can't really see him, but he goes, what if I get hit by a bus? It's true. We have to be prepared for those what if scenarios that are not planned for. We don't have it in our schedule. Oh, I think I'm going to have my gallbladder removed this year. You don't know.
Right.
And by the way, you mentioned, so many people actually do stay in their company for their benefits. Our benefits are kind of tied to this employment. And how many people out there would love to go and express themselves in a different way, but they can't afford to, or they can't afford to get sick. And I think this, what COVID did was kind of propel some people to just throw caution to the wind and say, hey, there's, I'm either getting laid off or it's not working, or they're now I have no excuse. I'm just going to do it. And what indipop does is give them something that's simple and affordable to help them fulfill their dreams. I like to say we support your dreams.
Great introduction. Love it. Well, we'll come back again. Let's have Alec share as well, if you please, a little bit about your background and how you landed here with your current company.
I have a pretty helter-skelter resume. I'm kind of all over the place. In my younger days, a lot of waiting tables and hospitality industry, customer service industry, and that sort of stuff, which set a really nice foundation for what I'm doing now. But as we progress, we get into, I was a clinical herbalist for a while. I did a lot of natural health care stuff with my clients. I was a body worker. I focused mostly on Chinese Tui Na modality, which is an acupressure modality. So that in conjunction with herbs and things like that. During that time, I was partnered with an esthetician who was doing natural skincare, a really cutting edge stuff. And this is almost 20 years ago now. And so we did that together for a great many years until it became evident that I should launch my own men's brand, my own men's line. So I launched in 2018. I launched PHILANDRY with an initial fragrance. We started with it's called Wolf's Bane. It's a cologne for men, and that was a really exciting time because there's a woman in Tucson. Her name is Leslie Wood. And she is La Curie. She does fragrances, natural fragrances that they're unisex. They're for men and women. And I was in a retail shop, my favorite retail shop in Tucson a few years ago. It's called Mast. And the ladies there are wonderful. I just love them all. But I went in, and my introduction to La Curie was her fragrances. She had, I think, 6 fragrances lined up, and I was just testing them with these snifters that she has there, and blown away. I mean, I had chills, and I thought, this is really amazing. I said, I don't know when. PHILANDRY had never occurred to me at that time, and I said, I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know how, but I need to work with this person because it was so inspiring to get these fragrances. So PHILANDRY came along. I decided it would be best to launch with a fragrance. Let's do that. Let's break all the rules, because you don't do that in skincare and body care and all those kind of personal care things. You don't launch with a fragrance, generally speaking. But it became the hero product. So I reached out to her and I said, Leslie, is there any chance that you would be willing to collaborate with me? I have this, concept in my head of a fragrance that I would like to develop. Would you be willing to do that? And she said yes. So it took a few months, but going back and forth and sitting down for many hours. And, when you're developing a fine fragrance like this, it really is as romantic as it sounds. It's such a cool experience. So, boom, we got Wolf's Bane. She nailed it. She read my mind. It was amazing. It's still the hero product in the line. But that really set the tone for this creative collaboration within the brand. Like in many ways, PHILANDRY is a one-man show, but it's not. I can't do any of this without the people that I collaborate with, like with Leslie and collaborating on the fragrances, or with Lance Thorne, really talented photographer and videographer in Tucson, Arizona, where we collaborate creatively on the media and the promotional stuff. And so it's that creative collaboration that takes something from here, and his hand is right here, to here that I couldn't do on my own. So that's the big inspiration behind it. Yeah, I care about skincare and I care about natural shave products and a natural deodorant that won't make you ill over time or have allergic reactions to and things like that. I care about those things, but I'm really inspired by that creative collaboration. There was some overlap there. I did some work at the university, so I had health benefits for a while. When you have a half-time employed position at the university, you get full bennies. And I was like, great. So I had pretty darn good health care until, and there was overlap there with PHILANDRY where I was doing half-time work at the university. But when that contract finally ended and I left there, I had no help.
Now?
And like you mentioned just a minute ago, navigating that whole tapestry of mess it's challenging. And I still don't know today traditionally what's available to me in healthcare and health insurance. I have no idea. I don't know. So I was introduced to indipop and saw that she was providing something really unique and that really would serve me and I seemed to really fit the bill for me. So I reached out to Melissa and we talked a few times on the phone back and forth, just kind of about things. And I wasn't sure. And it's like, it's still, it's a chunk of money, but it was so much less than what it seemed to be out there otherwise, though I never really nailed anything down where someone said, yeah, here, write us a check and we'll give you health insurance. I don't know. So I'm really excited. I'm really pleased that I had this connection brought to my doorstep like this with now I don't have to worry about getting hit by a bus.
Yeah.
And one thing I just wanted to point out is that Alec he's your typical person that he doesn't have really the time to research. And I don't think he really wants to do the research. It's a lot. You have enough stress, especially when you're a freelancer going to gig, and you're usually looking at night, when things might quiet down. And then nobody's available to pick up the phone when you want to talk to them and go, okay, I'm ready. I have some questions for you. So it makes it a little difficult. And I wanted to make sure with my site that you can enroll at any time. It's open enrollment. You don't have to talk to anyone. Everything's very simple and clear. With Alec he's kind of, not the standard, but I mean, he basically represents a lot of people that come and find indipop. It's hard to find what I'm offering. And that's what I'm trying to do is educate and get it out there that there are alternative options.
Why is it the best kept secret? That's not your language, but you said earlier that not a people know about health shares. Why is that?
It's just something that's not mainstream. It's a completely different approach. You don't have a premium or a deductible. So already it's like, well, what do you mean? What happens? You have something else that either is called an unassurable amount or a member responsibility amount. Different health shares do it a little bit differently, but basically, you're a member of a community. So you're in a membership that is splitting the cost of your medical needs. And there's usually concierge care. So they're walking you through. So you have a team to kind of walk you through a situation of a sprained ankle that you just don't run to your primary care physician in the ER or urgent care. You can actually do things on your own and get an x-ray to see if it's fractured. So I think it gives you a little more control. You're more, I think, proactive than reactive.
And by nature of the word insurance, and we know that it's there to help us prepare for the risks or that off chance that something's
worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario. We had our insurance through the Affordable Health Care Act, and I didn't
figure that out either.
What's right?
I'm
telling you,
I couldn't figure it out.
And I'm thinking, it's government mandated, and it's going to be easy to navigate, and it's not. Fortunately, I had somebody kind of helping me, like, here, what are your needs as a family, and what are you willing to pay deductible-wise? So they helped me narrow it down to a couple of different policies or whatever. But all said and done, a year ago, next week actually, my husband landed in trauma intensive care unit for a month.
Wow.
And then after that, in a post-acute facility for another month.
Ooh. Only
to come to find out, once I started looking at the bills coming in, that everything was denied. And so here I thought we had insurance that was going to protect us for the what-ifs, the life's biggest what-ifs, and we were not covered. Mm-hmm. And so here we are experiencing trauma and chaos as a family and keeping him alive and having this other more than full-time responsibility to try to make sense of how I'm going to pay for over $580,000 worth of medical debt. as we're coming up on open enrollment time traditionally for the Affordable Health Care Act, this is a really important conversation because of what you have to offer with health shares. And I love that there's no specific time. Like, when you have a need, you have a need. You can't go leaving your job in, say, whatever, July and sit and wait until, you get to open.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I just went to her website, click
so
basically
easy.
Buy now. It was like a shopping cart experience, and boom, you're dead. That's it. And then immediately I'm connected through this app with the people that can help me figure it out and navigate it. I sent an instant message and I said, hey, I don't know what to do about that. Oh, no problem. Just do this, and it's done. It's totally different. The accessibility of help and assistance and understanding and navigating it is huge. It's huge.
Yeah. Melissa, you mentioned the word concierge service. And in my mind, just based on some of the concierge services that I'm familiar with, I tend to immediately think it's have, but that's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm. No. In fact, I like to use examples of actual members or people that have come back to me. And I think that's amazing that actually people come back to me after they have had a conversation with the providers that I partner with, because that is in itself right there reinforcement that, it's working, it's on the right track. So there was a woman in New York that had to have an MRI. She needs to have one every year, and she's a cash pay person. And she was quoted something like $19.50 for this MRI. And she went through ours, and when we say concierge, they find the MRI facility, the imaging facility in your area in that zip code, and they find the fair market price. So you're always getting the fair price, and they'll negotiate. And so you're going to get it. She saved over $900. That makes a huge difference when you're on your own and you're, like I said, a freelancer or even a business owner. You don't have a lot of time for this. When you have a team that's getting you the fair price for something, that's really helpful. It's basically you're not alone, and I think that's a difference.
And they're knowledgeable.
Yeah, they're knowledgeable.
They've had the experience. They know where to go. That's the one thing. It's such a learning curve to navigate all that, and you want to navigate ahead of time, right before a procedure if you have an opportunity, instead of after the fact when now you're negotiating how to bring those bills down. We had to pay somebody to help us do that after the fact. Now, how about for prescriptions and medication?
They'll explore it, even if you want to, before you become a member, we can have that conversation so we could give you some ballparks of what is going to be. And I always say, because it's so new, I've been doing a lot of webinars to educate, especially because we're coming up on open enrollment. A lot of people are reaching out. Hey, this, it's my healthcare went up again, or we just found out this isn't my primary care visits aren't covered anymore.
Right.
What? You're spending over $450 a month in a premium and your primary care visits are not covered. Okay. So I like to say, look at your health bills from the last 3 years, your medical expenses. How many times are you going to the doctor? What is your copay pin? What is your deductible? And then let's look at a health share. So instead of a premium, you have a membership. So you have a monthly membership that you have to keep, active, obviously. And then we can negotiate for those cash pay prices. The two plans work very differently. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds.
Sure.
But essentially you have... for one of the plans, the most you're going to pay for a broken leg is $1,000.
That's incredible.
Right. And that's going to go towards a max. So you do have a max of how many times. It's just going to kind of lump the two plans together, 3 or 5 times for a family. So you can kind of gauge how much it's going to be. And in most cases, it's going to be less than what the deductible. I'll just explain for me. For my deductible, I was quoted between $6,000 to $8,000. It's a lot of money on top of $450 a month for a premium, and your primary care visits aren't covered. So I just urge people to look at the fine print when they're, looking up for coverage. What exactly is covered? Is your ER visit covered? Is your primary care visit specialist? And just kind of add everything up and see.
Can I jump in? So, because you also asked about like prescriptions and medications and stuff, and I don't have prescriptions and medications, but just as I was reaching out to Melissa about all this, I had this folliculitis, like a rash, an allergic reaction rash. And so I was prescribed a steroid cream, right? Triamcinolone. So, and I'm like, okay, I got to go to a pharmacy. I don't know how this works. Well, I had just signed up for the health share plan with indipop, but it was mid-September. It didn't become active until October 1st. But I had my app. So I sent them a message that said, hey, I'm new here. I just signed up yesterday. I know I don't technically have benefits yet. It doesn't kick in till the 1st, but I've got this prescription that someone just wrote for me for this folliculitis thing, and I'd really like to get it, but it's going to be, So they said, oh, no problem. We'll take care of it. What's your pharmacy? And I told them the pharmacy. They negotiated it. I called the pharmacy, and they said, yep, we have it in for you. I said, oh, how much is it going to be? $4.50. I said, I'll be there in 10 minutes.
And this one over here is beaming. You haven't heard that story yet.
See, I need everyone who's a member. Please share stories.
Right.
It makes me feel... It keeps me going.
Aren't those the best?
Yeah,
me too. I mean, I'll get occasionally get a message or feedback or something from a customer. I'm just like, it's so cool. So I'm sorry I didn't share that with you prior, but here we are.
First. And what a great example of customer service and loyalty. Not even a legit member yet, and you're kind of risky in making those calls, but why not ask? Right, the worst thing you can do is say
with my thumbs. It's why I didn't. If I had to pick up the phone and actually talk to somebody, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But I just I thumbed away, and within moments even. I mean, it was they responded within like 2 minutes, I think.
Yeah. I love that story. And it makes me think about when you said, Melissa, fair market value for service, right? When it comes to medical care, whether it's prescriptions or a surgery or just a general visit, the markup is absurd.
Well, and there's no rhyme and reason. In a hospital, you might get an MRI that might cost $10,000. Outside the hospital, it might cost $2,500. You just don't know. And area to area, different zip codes too. So
yeah. So thank you for bringing indipop to the world. Holy cow! You mentioned this example of this member in New York. So this is not just Arizona based.
50 states.
All 50 states, and indipop can help independent business owners.
Right.
Yeah. And if I have employees, which I don't, everybody I work with are contractors. But do you have plans then for?
Perfect. We just signed a small company up. They have 20 different independent contractors, 1099 employees. Basically, eligibility is you have to have 2 in your company, and then a minimum of 125 that you're contributing to their plan.
So they're not W-2. They're 1099 independents, and they still can get coverage.
Right, for 6 months or for whatever period.
That was
of time.
A big surprise to me.
Huge.
Yeah.
You both, so you were introduced to Melissa through indipop. Someone said, hey, go do this.
Well, yeah, it was a mutual colleague of ours. And I think it was just in conversations. He was like, "Oh, it sounds like you need health insurance." I said, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "Well, you need to talk to her." So that was a really easy introduction there.
But how neat is it that you both have some crossover with what you're doing now, right? So you both have pivoted your careers, and what you're both like, yes, absolutely.
Not in our 20s doing it either. Right. I mean, we're both going to be 50 very soon.
My reading glasses are right here.
Yeah, well, I'm ahead of you. Look at the gray hair. I've got the gray hair to prove it. So what is it like to make that transition in your 40s and now be doing what you're doing? I mean, for each of you, what has the ride been like for you?
Well, I listened to your story about Philandry and how you had this calling. It seemed like I've got to do this. And that's a similar feeling when I got so, yours sounded more like not a pain point. You just wanted to do something, like go on a different trajectory. Mine was a pain point that I'm like, I want to solve for this. I don't want other people to go through the stress that I went through, this frustration, and knowing that there's things, alternatives out there, a solution that is not mainstream, but can be a great alternative. It's not for everyone. But when I do the webinars, the first thing I ask is, have you heard of a health share? And unanimously, it's no. Yeah. So when they say, this sounds too good to be true, what's the catch? I'm like, well, just because you never heard of a health share before. So I'm basically like doing a lot of education. But so mine came out of I just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring this to the United States, and I'm going to do as much help as I can. So yeah, do you expect at 47 to take on a startup? No, I mean, but when you believe in something so much and you're passionate about it, it's not work. It's really, it just becomes, it's a different type of work. Mm-hmm. it's just become, a mission. Yeah, there we go.
There's that saying for entrepreneurs and business owners, we are the only group of people who will work more than 40 hours, like 80 hours a week, to not have to work for someone else, right? Because we don't want to work for 40 hours for somebody else. But it's a lifestyle, it's a passion, it's a commitment. And similar to what you described, what my kiddos used to say to me, why don't you just go get a regular job, right? Why can't you just, when I'm working from home and late at night and weekends and I'm having to make some sacrifices. And my response to them was, I wish I could. I don't know how not to be completely immersed and passionate about what I'm doing. I don't know how to do life and business any other way. And I was an educator for years and worked for public school districts and did very well, got paid very well to the degree you do in education. But I found my way to owning my own business, and I could never look back. And thank goodness we've got Indipop to help us navigate some of those things that don't come as easily when we're in business for ourselves. Tell us a little bit about your journey at this time of your life. You spoke a little bit about it in the introduction.
Right. Well, I was also 47 when I launched PHILANDRY. For me, it had to do with that myriad of experience that I've had professionally and personally. I shared a little bit of it earlier of my professional background, but I worked in the arts for many, many years. I'm pretty fully entrenched in the Warehouse Arts District in Tucson. I'm a painter and a photographer. And so there's this creative necessity, but I was, with all the things that I did and all the things that I was doing, it was scattering the attention a bit too much. So I found it difficult for any one thing to really take root and blossom. And so I said, it wasn't even really consciously where I sat down and said, I got to figure this shit out. It came to me that there is a way that I can corral all this and focus it and channel it into a singular entity. And that's when PHILANDRY was bloomed on a road trip driving back from my parents' house. So, it was a way to bring all of that stuff together, the photography, the art, the design. I've done graphic design, web design, all those kinds of things, and bringing it all into this singular entity and really focusing and really getting my jam and my groove on that. So
it's the culmination of everything.
It is the culmination of everything that I've been doing.
Would you feel the same about
it's funny because I'm a painter too. And I think part of me is living through my members' lives because a lot of them are musicians and artists and graphic artists. I consider them artists and they get to do what they have wanted to do. And one thing with going back to film school was I focused a lot on dramatic writing. And I think storytelling is such a huge component in any business to tell your story and to tell your customer's story. And I feel very proud to be able to tell their story and to represent them through Indipop.
I feel like Phoenix Business Radio is the same for me. It's a culmination and kind of the crescendo, everything coming together after, a life of trying to figure things out. Mine's been very splattered as well. And I've enjoyed everything, as I hear you both saying, and I've risen up to, kind of some neat places and everything I've done. And I wasn't necessarily looking either, but when it landed in my lap, I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything that that I've loved doing. And I get to do it in such a, most of the time, easy and fulfilling way. And that's not to say it's not hard work. Would you both agree?
It's just different work, right?
It's different work. Launching a product line, holy cow, right? In an industry that is, I think, the toughest, right? Don't they say that fragrances and personal care products is the toughest industry?
It's brutal. It is brutal. Yeah. It's cutthroat. And it's really difficult, I think, for small independent businesses like myself who are not going to go how do I say this? Kind of the traditional advertising route. I don't really advertise. There's sometimes I do some social media ads and such, and they're just challenging. It's really more like the organic reach on social media and that sort of thing. But truth in advertising. I see a lot of companies out there that are still promoting these natural products and whatever product. And I look at them and I look at their ingredient stacks and I'm thinking, how do you sleep at night? It's not cool, but it can be really slick and really appealing and sell really easily. So, someone like me who I'm doing all this on a shoestring. well, anyway, it's just I don't have this big marketing budget and advertising budget with investors and those kinds of things. So it's like, so that's why I started with one product. Yeah, I had a vision for all these skincare products and beard products and shave and all this, and I had it all in my head. I thought, oh, it'd be great to just pull the trigger and do it. Can't do it. You start with one, and now it is. I forget how many products are in the line, but and I digressed, but didn't I? Where did I go?
Okay.
I don't even know where I went.
I have a question.
What
for
was
you,
I
though.
talking about?
So much stuff. It's all fascinating. I'm just curious, when you were smelling those scents in the beginning, what was it, the scent that just made such an impact on you that you're like, I want to do this? I'm really curious what it was. Was it musky? Was it floral,
Yeah,
citrus?
it was. I can tell you, and it's La Curie, LA-CURIE.com. Leslie, it was Faunus. She has this fragrance called Faunus, and it was just breathtaking. I mean, all of them were so good, but the Faunus especially stood out. And she's created a few since then that are really remarkable. But it was like this kind of almost like synesthesia kind of thing. I mean, I almost saw the fragrance. I could hear it. There was a harmonizing. It was a harmony. What she does is magical. It's more than just, oh, this smells really good and it'll pair really nicely with this. There's this magical quality to this like conjuring that she does that's just like no one else, I don't think, can do it, truthfully. And she's in Tucson.
Is there a specific type of male that is coming to you just for these scents?
Well, there are two scents now. There's Wolfsbane and Solstice, and they're different. The Wolfsbane is really like earthy, woodsy, smoky, a little bit of musk, but a little bit of like a neroli in there, which is like a bruised orange blossom and that kind of thing. So it rounds it out really nicely, and it's a good one. I really love it. But
smell it now.
and then Solstice is more in like those sandalwoods and bergamot and those kinds of things. They're very different, but similar in a lot of ways. You asked me a question. You asked me the type of guys that come, all kinds. It runs the gamut, and that's something I really love about the fragrance. And also, well, anyway, that's something I really love about the fragrance. It's appealing to a really fairly broad spectrum of gentlemen, but also women. I have a lot of. I think maybe a dozen times over the past couple of years, I've received an email or a message from a woman that said, yeah, I got Wolfsbane from my husband, but I never gave it to him because it's so good, and these fragrances, they're different on everybody. Your body chemistry interacts with it. And so it's different. Like my friend Lance, who I mentioned earlier, friend and colleague Lance, I smelled Wolfsbane on him one day, and I said, "What are you wearing? That's really good. It's really unique." And he said, "That's yours, dumbass." But it was so different on him. So,
because we all have our own makeup,
we
our
do.
DNA.
We all have,
it's going to come out differently on each of us.
But the way it blossoms on each, it just seems to really do these really neat.
Are you watching him talk about this?
I'm
it's
in love.
fascinating,
I
right?
love it. Yeah, it's really, really neat.
Am I moving? There are a lot of
just that passion, right? You
Right,
both
exactly.
exude so much passion
Yeah.
about how you're showing up in the world with your offering, and we think that we have to have it all together when we're in our 20s.
Oh
Right.
God, thank God! And I didn't fall for that. In my 20s, I was like, I'm a mess. And this is really going to be okay for a while. And it better be. Otherwise, I'm going to be a mess for a long
And
time.
thank goodness, because when we fight ourselves and we make ourselves out to be wrong, right, then it makes the journey that much harder. Talk to us a little bit about how important it is to have the products made in America. Like, are you committed to all the aspects of your products in certain ways? Like, what's important to you?
What's important to me? Yeah, Made in America is very important to me. And all of my products, with the exception of some of the tools, like the razor and the shave brush, which I hope to change in 2021, but it's really hard to find manufacturers where I wouldn't have to charge like $80 for the razor. That's just the nature of things. But eventually, we'll get there eventually, and there'll probably be a manufacturing wing on the avenue there at some point where I can have these made. But yeah, Made in America is really important. And if I lived in Canada, it would be made in Canada. This is where I live, and this is where I grew up, and this is where my family is. So Made in America is very important, and all the products are, with the exception of the couple that I mentioned, and also natural, organic as much as possible. My products range in organic content from like around 82 to 94% organic, which can be challenging because it can become cost prohibitive. Fair trade is really important to me. Sustainability is really important. honoring where it's coming from, the impact that we have consuming these things. That sustainability is a really important aspect to me, for sure.
And as you mentioned, as an independent business owner and pretty much, a one-man show, with the exception of obviously these wonderful collaborations, that's hard to do, to stick with the mission and purpose when sometimes it's so much easier to go outside of the country to do things. So I really respect.
Yeah. And when it's not just about the bottom line, because it's like, I've got a bottom line. I've got to pay my bills. I got to pay my rent. I got to, get groceries and things. But if I'm not going to hold me to it by saying this, I'm not going to compromise certain integrity to achieve that. I'm not going to do it. If I go through life with not a lot of money and I live a really modest life. I just actually sold my house that I had for almost 20 years, and I'm renting a little bungalow now, and I really like it, but it's really modest. It's small, and if it's that way for the remainder of my journey here, then that's fine, so long as I'm doing what I know is right.
Have you always been wired that way?
I think that's
more clarity now.
Yeah, more focus and clarity, more understanding of why. I think that's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I'll jump in because I did not give myself a break in my 20s at all. I pushed myself to the extreme, and I now can look back, and I am turning 50 in a week, everyone. So,
Yay!
And I am now saying half a century. I'm not even going to say 50 because I think it's just cooler. But yeah, I look where I am today, and like I said, I was going to be Speilberg. Like, I went out to LA to do something. I'm going to make movies, and I had this idea in my head. And I think this pandemic is a perfect example of where you have this plan, and then all of a sudden something out of your control happens. How do you react, and what are you going to do? And there could be an open window right next to you, but you're going to still try to pound down that door. Yep. And I think that it's taken me this over 40 decades to finally figure out that sometimes it's not about figuring everything out. It's about enjoying and being open to those possibilities that can even be bigger and better than you ever could have imagined it. So I've learned to let go, surrender a little bit. I know that kind of sounds cheesy, but it really helps in those moments because there's a lot of things that aren't in your control. And
not knowing doesn't have to be a scary thing.
No, it's
life's journey.
It actually is the adventure.
Right.
It's the path. I was so adamant to get to a goal that I was missing everything in between. And I try not to live life like that anymore. Yeah.
We could end the segment.
Bravo.
We could end the segment right
Mic
there,
drop.
but we're not going to. Yeah, mic drop. Love it. So you both have said, obviously, that you're helping. You of course, feel like you're still, maintaining that art aspect because you're working with artists. Let's talk a little bit about giving back. Mm-hmm. How are you giving back through your business?
I'm going to climb up on my soapbox here for a second. I think that all businesses need to give back to their communities. Absolutely. And I see Jeff Bezos, people raking in enormous amounts of money through their endeavors, which is great, but spread that around. Pay your employees a decent wage, a livable wage, and give back. So business is good, but I don't have some big, huge, booming business, but I insist that Philandry always give back. And so periodically, it's usually kind of quarterly or maybe twice a quarter, I'll choose, do a little research and choose a nonprofit organization to give back to. And I've been really fortunate, thanks to my customers, to be able to make contributions to Cyndi Lauper's Treat Colors United for homeless youth, to Feeding America. This month we're doing 10% of all online sales this month are going to the Susan G. Komen Foundation for breast cancer. But in doing that, I also wanted to find an organization where it wasn't just like I say for this month we're going to contribute to this organization or this. We wanted an ongoing kind of partnership. Anyway, so I wanted an ongoing partnership. And but there's a lot of research that needs to be done to find a really good organization that's a really good fit, that that the money that they're receiving is going to a worthy cause, that it's being managed properly and not misappropriated, and those kinds of things. And I came upon an organization called One Tree Planted, and they are about planting trees. And so I partnered with them, as many businesses have. And so now, since it's been the beginning of the year, I think it was in February where we launched this program. So for every product that's sold, every Philandry product that's sold, a tree is planted in North America. So, and I choose North America because this is where we live, and we got a lot of fires here. And North America meaning, Canada as well. So in fact, one of my favorite customers is up in Canada, and I just sent him one of a reforestation T-shirt with his latest order, because he's just been so supportive from the very beginning. I mean, day one, he was one of my first customers, and I said, I'll let you know that for this month, I'm gonna be donating to plant trees in Canada, specifically, as a thank you. But anyway, that's my meager and modest attempt to give back in some way or another, and I think it's really important. I just do.
Yeah, the studio is sponsored in part by Conscious Capitalism of Arizona. I don't know if you're familiar with that organization, but it's worldwide. And it really is everything that you're both speaking to, right? Making sure that you're taking care of all stakeholders without sacrificing relationship with one or the other. So our community is a stakeholder in our business, our employees, our customers, our vendors, right? And how do we create businesses that are sustainable, they're earth friendly? How do we reach across the aisle and shake hands with our competition? Friendly competition is great. Fierce competition is also great, but there's room for everybody.
Absolutely.
And so I love hearing when I have guests on that speak around those, conscious capitalism tenets. It's great to hear that. Melissa, talk to us a little bit about your experience in starting up a business here in Arizona specifically. Mm-hmm. Have there been some challenges? Have there been some really neat things that you'd be willing to share with us? What has been your experience?
Well, what's interesting is that I've had the opportunity to live on both coasts, in New York and LA. I moved from LA. I was there for 10 years. And starting a business here, the people that I've met, literally, and it's either going to be in the first 30 seconds or when you say goodbye, they're going to say to you, how can I help? And that is true community. Just like how you mentioned, even if they're in competition, they're still going to talk to you. And I find that to be, I'm very lucky to be in Arizona and start my business here and to be on a show like this and to meet you and have Alec in Tucson. It's really nice. I think the business community, the entrepreneur community is a close one and one that wants to see Arizona successful and the people in Arizona successful. So I've had a good experience.
Oh, I'm so pleased. And LT, also a New Yorker.
Yeah. Oh, fierce New Yorker.
Fierce. In fact, I was sharing some pictures of my trip this weekend there to visit my daughter. And she's like, you're making me homesick. I'm officially homesick. But she's a perfect example of that go-give attitude, someone who's always listening and watching for that opportunity to say, you need to meet so-and-so. I need to get you connected. And certainly she did that with us. And I really do share that belief, Melissa, that Arizonans are like that. Are you finding that too, Alec, that we are, especially as entrepreneurs and business owners, wanting to lift everybody up as we climb?
I see that more than not. Absolutely. In speaking from Tucson, I see that in the arts community where fellow artists are not competitive with one another, but they're lifting each other up. I see it in the restaurant industry with what's going on with COVID. I've got several good friends in the restaurant business that are struggling, and it's a real challenge. But they are very quick to shout out to other restaurants, even on the same block as them, to say, hey, go support them and give them a helping hand and get your takeout food from them this week and that sort of thing. So seeing that kind of support, community support is really inspiring, and it feels really nice to see that.
And when we're business owners, we can often feel like we're in a silo working by ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And you've pointed out several times how great it's been to own your own business, have it be your thing, but also you couldn't have done it and can't do it without these collaborative relationships.
Absolutely. And that's been the biggest challenge in this COVID era that we've had this year, is that I haven't been able to collaborate like that. We haven't done any photo shoots this year. We haven't done any video work. We haven't looked at new fragrances. We haven't been able to do that because we're just very limited. But absolutely. Yeah.
We have a larger community. We have a partner page, Indipop. I'm a big my outlook is to partner with other communities that serve this population. And so I'm going to give a shout out to Luminary New York City. It's a co-working space for women in New York. And they've been amazingly supportive. And just because they're in New York doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of some of their virtual and their events, because almost the whole world is going virtual. So now it's like bringing people closer together. So I feel just because you're in Arizona doesn't mean your community is going to stop in Arizona. So a lot of my partners are not Arizona partners, and you can find resources through them as well. So I think it's a really great opportunity to bring this larger community of 57 million, to try to bring it down a little bit smaller, you don't have to feel so isolated because you live in Chandler, Arizona. And not Brooklyn, New York, or LA. Or
Melissa, how does one get information to see if this is for them, right? There's no risk in reaching out. And Alec mentioned how easy it is to just get on the page. But if we have questions, where do we start?
You can, www.indipop.co, indipop.co. Also, hello@indipop.co. And I'm going to be doing webinars. I'm doing one Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. If anyone's interested in hopping on that, it's on my website. You can go to the event page or webinar page and check out. Webinars are a great way. I do not do a lot of talking. It's live. I do a little presentation to kind of educate people about health shares. And then I just answer a lot of questions. That's really it. I mean, it's very simple. That's my brand promise. It has to be simple and it has to be affordable to be on my site.
And I love the fact that you share with the community so that people have those resources, right? It's all around connecting and who we know. And it's for what you're doing, it's not just local Arizona. It is, listen, I think you gave me some statistics, and maybe you don't know them off the top of your head, but the amount of people that are in business for themselves and solopreneurs is growing.
About 12 million.
12 million. Mm-hmm. And I'm awful with facts and figures, but I read something online just yesterday about the amount of women specifically that have lost their jobs or chosen to step away from their jobs during COVID, in part to take care of their family and their kids while they're at home.
Yeah, it's affected women the most, I think.
The most. And how many of those women are looking at starting their own work from home job. Like, what can I do now, right? We need an income. So hopefully our conversation has inspired folks not only to take responsibility and let you help them with their health share and their health insurance alternative, but also the creative aspect of building a business and really standing in your power and your mission and going for it regardless of age.
That's my message. Just like you said, if I can say, anything about being an older business person, is there is no milestones with age. It's not about the journey. It's not about that at a certain point you have to hit this milestone or that milestone. You can start a business over the age of 40. You can go back to school if you want to. You can do these things. And I'm glad that Indipop can help support people in their journey if they want to take. I say, you took that leap, to follow your dreams, and we want to support you in that.
Love it. We have just a few minutes left. I would love to hear about a mentor or mentors in your life. I mean, who has been important to you? Just the first person that comes to the top of your mind. Who would you be willing to give a shout out to today?
My dad.
Yeah.
My dad, I think that by example, he set an example for me, not in what he told me, but what he did. He reinvented himself in his 40s as well. I kind of realized it after launching PHILANDRY. But my dad, a lifetime journalist, we were on the East Coast, and he was working as a press secretary there, actually. Is that what his title was? Anyway, he was doing the grind, the more than 40 hours a week. And sometimes his commute into Washington, D.C., the traffic was so bad it would take him 3 hours, and he was missing out on life. So he did this for 9 years. And he said, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore. I want to be with my family. So we picked up. And when I was just a teenager, I think I was 13 years old, moved to the Midwest. He bought a newspaper, actually a couple newspapers, weekly newspapers, and became an editor and publisher as that he'd always dreamed to be. And it was touch and go and really tough. And my parents have shared with me since then. I didn't know at the time. They were really good at not stressing me out with it, but it was really touch and go. But they made it work, and it was really great. So that's him setting that example of it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't have kids. I don't have a family and such. But he did it with like kids and family. So that was impressive.
To Melissa's point, being able to just say age is just a number. And if I have a passion, mission, and something that I want to put out in the world, it must be planted there for a reason. So go for it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you being the face of your company. That was a conscious decision. Was that a hard one?
That was. It was. It wasn't a hard decision, but being the face of a brand it's interesting. But the reason behind it is I wanted to have connectivity with my customers. I wanted to be able to interact with them directly. I didn't want to create a company where, I was just kind of this invisible player pulling strings in the background. I want that engagement. I genuinely enjoy having conversations with my customers, whether they're brief or longer or whatever. So being the face of the brand helps me do that. I'm kind of seeing a shift in small businesses where folks are doing this a little bit more, where they're stepping up and they're being more accessible in this sort of way. And I know that a lot of my customers really have appreciated that. They've expressed their appreciation how accessible I am, and I can answer their questions directly about products and those kinds of things. So, and there was also just a practical thing. I mean, there's hiring spokesperson and models and that kind of thing it's expensive, and I don't have that budget. So, all right, here we go. Let's do this. And so, but it's been working really nicely, and I really enjoy it.
One of the things, Melissa, that we talked about a little bit today, but more so in our introductory phone call, was the importance of storytelling and how good you are with that. And I can't help but reflect on Alec that I think social media has given us many gifts. It also haunts us in some ways too, but the opportunity to be available for our clients and our fans, right? So, and they want to see the vulnerability, the authenticity. They want to get to know us, notice us, and storytelling is critical.
Well, I'm one of the 57 million that I started this business for. So to me, it was my story is their story. And there's different faces of indie pop. Alec is one of them. I'm going to be doing some spotlights, by the way, of some of my members, because I think it's important to show that this freelancing solopreneurship comes in all different diverse backgrounds, and I want to highlight that. I want to show that. I want to show their stories, that they're able to do what they want to, what their dreams are, what they want to do. For Alec to be able to live his best life possible, and in case anything happens to him, he has something in place. That's important. I hope you could sleep better at night, Alec.
No, sure. I mean, it's like, because if something happened to me and I laid up in the hospital or something without health care, it's one thing. I mean, it would impact me greatly and it would be financially devastating and that sort of stuff, but it could be potentially devastating to like my parents or something, where it's like, I don't have a spouse or extended family and that sort of thing. And my folks would feel obligated to step up and like give me retirement to take care of this injury or something. And it's like, that would be even worse. It's just, that would be awful. So I'd never wish to be a burden like that on anyone. So.
So I did. I ended up putting my story on my website, which I struggled with. Do I want my picture? Do I want Melissa Blatt to be out there? But I felt it was important that I'm not like the average insurance company. First of all, we're not insurance, but second of all, it is about kind of a larger issue.
I can relate.
Exactly, relatable. Yeah.
Well, and that was a big appeal to me when I was introduced to you in the beginning. I was like, ooh, a person.
I'm real.
A person.
Who gets me.
Yeah.
Who knows that I have a name and I'm a person too and I'm not a number. That was huge. That was a big deal. So, and immediately trust was able to start to blossom very quickly. So that was important.
I want to go back to circle back to the idea of a mentor or inspiring person, because I feel like I left that hanging. But somebody that has been an inspiration or a mentor to you?
While Alec was talking, I had a flood of memories at different stages of my life. There have been different mentors. And that's what really comes back to me. Even one of my members in New York, because I get to know, when I get to talk to members, I get to know their story and what's making them tick and why they left the corporate world and doing something. So Amy, if you're listening, she's in New York, and, just spent a brief time with her, but she, went out on her own, and she made this statement of she's not scared to fail because she doesn't have a definition for success. And I thought that was so fascinating that she's really in the journey. And I love that. So Amy, she touched me with her words, and my parents, just like Alec, I think our parents kind of help form a little bit of who we are, because I moved 4 times before the age of 14. And that really impacted me, picking up and moving during the middle of a school year and then standing in front of the class. And by the way, they called me Missy back then. So they're like, "Hi, class, this is the new student, Missy." And it puts you at center stage at 7 years old, like, holy cow, I don't know any of you. And now everybody's looking at me, and I have to make new friends and then pick up, move again. So why my parents are my mentors is because I learned at a certain age to kind of survive. And basically you can plop me down anywhere and I'm going to be able to live and make friends. And I think that's a really great trait to have. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
What is next for both of you? Let's round out the segment today. Is there, what's on the horizon?
Oh, we're adding. So I'm like so excited. You can see. So next month I'm meeting with another team to add more benefits and services, things that are going to make this population's life a lot better, and more education. Yeah,
education is key for sure. Mm-hmm. Great. So again, tell us where we can get in front of indipop. You mentioned it's indipop.co.
Right.
Yes. And you are on LinkedIn. So is indipop as well?
LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Yes. You can find us.
Wonderful.
INDIPOP.
Great.
Nice.
Alec, how about for you? Where can we find you and what's next?
Within the world of philandry, it was actually my intention to launch some apparel this fall, but the timing's not really great for that. So I'm going to put that off for probably late spring or something. But apparel is something I'd like to, I really want to develop. Some simple clothing like Henleys and those kinds of things, underwear, things like that. So getting there. And then in the studio itself, just starting to paint again, which feels really good because I taken quite the hiatus from that. So that's, I'm looking forward to that.
Wonderful. And where do we find you and your products?
You can find my products online at philandry.men, PHILANDRY.men. You can also go to .com and it'll forward, but that's it. And Instagram's my jam. So you can find the Philandry pages on there, but also my personal Instagram, which actually I post a lot more too. And it's more like lifestyle and health and really bad selfies and stuff like that. So, good fun, though.
Very good.
Yeah.
Last question for both of you. What was the first paycheck paying job that you had? First paycheck paying. We washed dogs and we've mowed lawns and we babysat. Yeah. But how about your first paycheck? Mine was Taco Bell. We actually got robbed. And it was like after the bar rush, and it was right here on Apache Boulevard, right by ASU. And oh my gosh, the next day my dad's like, "Yep, you're quitting." And I'm grateful for that guidance. But how about for you? What was your first paycheck paying job, Melissa?
We had a store in Minneapolis called Dayton's. For all you Minnesotans out there, I know you're going to remember. It was probably bought out by, I think, Marshall's, and I don't even know if it's there. I was on the ground floor in the downtown. Oh, such a beautiful, the marble floors. You walk in and it's like this beautiful store.
I've arrived.
I sold hosiery.
Hosiery. Nice.
Yes. But I've done so many random, just like you.
Me too.
I sold coffee door to door once. I mean, I answered calls for Screen Actors Guild. Like, I've done it all, I think.
Which is why you're perfect.
Oh,
right?
my God.
Which is why you're perfect for indipop and representing that population that has done it all.
I've done it all.
Yeah.
What about you?
My first actual paycheck paying job was at my father's newspaper. I was paid $3.19 an hour. And he put me in to do, I was doing some graphic design. It was the first newspaper actually that switched over to Macintosh. It was 1983 or something. So Macintosh computers from the old linotype machines and everything. But I ran his darkroom and I did all his page negatives, shot all his page negatives and ran them out to
you win
and stuff. So it was that was really influential. And at that time, that's when the black and white photography was really big for me. I had access to that darkroom and stuff. But anyway, short story, that was my first paycheck job, was at my dad's newspaper.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Love it. Yeah. Well, thank you both for spending your morning with me and sharing your journey and your story. Fantastic. And we'll have this out as a podcast very, very soon. You've been listening to Phoenix Business RadioX, broadcasting live from within the Mac 6 Conscious Workspace studio. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks for listening.